Yay.
All right, I see some questions coming in. Okay, let's see. I will answer a question from Carolyn, who says, if my account renews in September, is there a way to stall until it is on sale on Cyber Monday? Okay. So there's no way to stall or put a pause or extend your account, but I'll say this, and I'm hoping that the marketing and subscriptions team at Quizlet don't get mad at me. Every single year I've been at Quizlet, we have run a sale for back to school.
Oh.
Be very surprised if we did not run a sale for back to school this year. For us, usually back to school means August. So I don't know if there is a way to upgrade your account in August. If it's not, I don't believe there is a way to upgrade your account in August if it is not up for renewal until September. And usually if you're up for renewal, there's not a way to get another sale. So let's say if you're a first-time purchaser, you have a good chance of getting a deal in August. And if you are a current subscriber, usually we offer a deal for the first year, but I don't believe there's ways to get sales on the second year if it's auto renewing. So that is my answer about that. Okay.
Pamela asked, I would love to be able to put pictures on the front of cards, language teacher here, any plans for that? So Pamela, I'm thinking you're just talking about inserting a picture in. I'm not sure about front of card, but pictures are with the paid account. So I have the teacher paid account, and so I can add pictures in. If you don't have a paid account, but you find someone's Quizlet study set that does have pictures in, you can still actually use that. It's just you can't create on your own with pictures.
I do think Pam was also asking, can you put an image on the front of your card? And so right now you can upload an image for the definition side, but not the term side. And not right now. And I'll say it's one of those questions that I feel like is one where people are like, why can't we do this? This seems like it should be so easy to do. I want to be able to do this. And I hear that. And I'm not an engineer, but it is one of those things that for whatever reason, it seems to be something that is much harder to build for the way Quizlet is built than it sounds like it should be. So right now, images only available on the definition side. That said, for most of our study modes, you can configure if you want to start with the term or the definition. So hopefully that doesn't get in the way of what you want to do too much. Okay, let's see. Can you remind me how to add a new folder? I can remind you how to do that. So I'm going to share my screen. And all right, let's go into my account. So here's me. I'm in my Quizlet teacher account. And I get to load. Okay. I can create a folder right here. And here I'm going to say Unconference folder. Here is my folder. And I can create it. And then once I have my folder, I can add a set. So maybe I'll put in my colors in Mandarin and my Spanish verb set. And then you can see that I have my two sets now in my folder. So that is that one. I'm going to stop sharing. Okay.
Can we get a volume control for the music in Quizlet Live?
Maybe, but I guess I would say why you could also just turn down the volume on your computer would be the other way to do it.
That's true.
Yeah, maybe if that is something that you'd like, Alexis, I would love to hear, maybe you can write into the help center and tell us more about why you would want to control the volume on Quizlet instead of just turning down the volume on your computer. It's totally something we could build. It's more just, it seems like we already have that support elsewhere. Okay. Okay, let's see. Okay. Is there a way to duplicate classes? One year I have one calculus class, but sometimes I have two. Can I duplicate the one from the next year? No, not right now. But I've heard that that is a request of like easier class management. And I agree that being able to like create your calculus class and then use the same class with the same content for the next year is totally something we should support, but we don't do it right now. But it's definitely something that I'm aware of. And I think in general, having easier ways to manage classes is sort of like a macro theme that I'm thinking about a lot. So how do we make it easier to add students to classes? How do you get more useful information into classes? How do you make classes more useful year after year, etc. So, okay. Mary asks, this is a good one. I have a coaching service. Is there a way to control access to those who purchase cards? Okay, so I'm gonna give y'all, this is like a good feature to know about. Oops. Let me get back in. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen again. So when you create content, if I go to create a study set here, there are these options here. And I think most people just skip right over them. Visible to everyone and only editable by me. So only editable by me. Sometimes teachers will see, will want their like classes to work on a study set as a group. Oftentimes we'll actually see students will like work on a study set together. But this one, you can change the visibility to just people with a password. And then you can create a password and you could just send out that password to the students you're coaching. And that would be a good way to control who can see it, only to those who have the password. Who has the password? Students who are paying to be part of your class. So that is a good power feature. I think sometimes teachers will also use this. There's good options here. Certain classes, so maybe you want Spanish 2 to see something, but maybe not, you don't want Spanish 1 to see it because they're going to be in Spanish 2 next year. I don't know. Or sometimes teachers will, maybe one class is ahead of another class. So you have two sections of government and you think that, government period 1 is going to take the test on Monday and government period 2 is going to take the test on Friday. And maybe you don't want period 2 to see the study guide. I don't know. So you can use these controls as a way of sort of managing who can see the content, which is great.
Glenn asked, if the teacher has a paid account but the students do not, will they be able to do everything I asked them to do on Quizlet? The answer is yes. So your students can just create their own student account. I have my students make their student accounts just using their school email. Actually, on the very first day of school, I have them create their Quizlet account if they don't already have one created, and then I have them join my class. I set up my Quizlet in classes. I haven't set up folders myself, but that probably should be something that I should look into just to kind of organize my page for sure. But the kids can access everything that you create for them for sure.
Anonymous asks, do free teachers get technical support? And they do. So we have a great help center and our help center has automated support. It has great articles. And also we have an amazing team that will respond to you. So if you're running into a challenge with your account, you've had to do something, please get in touch with us. We would love to help you out.
Tony said, I do not see the live option when creating a study set. If you don't see the live option, you're going to need to go into your account settings and make sure that your Quizlet account is a teacher account and not the student account. The free account is fine, but just go into your profile settings, make sure that student is not selected and teacher is selected, and then you'll get the live option.
All right, Beatrice ask, can your students keep the same account if they are made in school? Yeah, so your students own their accounts on Quizlet, so every student has to sign up for themselves. So as long as they have access to their email address and they know the username and password, they can keep using that account year after year. And that's actually something we see all the time, which is like, maybe somebody is like, one of Rory's students is using Quizlet for her algebra class. And then they're like, oh my God, Quizlet is so useful for Spanish and for US history too. And I can use it in all these other ways. So in that way, I think we can sometimes be a little bit different than other products that are controlled by the district or controlled through sort of like that kind of rostering toolkit. So your students can absolutely keep their accounts. And we oftentimes will talk to students who are in college and beyond who are like, I'm still using Quizlet. I'm so happy I know about this. So
Lisa asked, what should I put in the library and for what do I use the folders? I have issues with organizing. So for myself, I'm actually contemplating whether or not I should do a class or just do folders. So folders is really, classes are really nice because let's say I have two different types of algebra classes. I have my regular college prep class, and then I have my honors classes, and then I have my geometry classes. So when I go ahead and create a study set, after I create that study set, I immediately just go ahead and I drop it into those classes for those students. The other option would be that I kind of just, as I'm creating study sets, I drop them into specific folders. So I can say, you know what, if you're one of my algebra college prep students, access that folder and all the study sets you need are located in that folder. That kind of would be beneficial for me not needing to have students go into like set up the class and having them log into the class. But the benefit of the classes is that it's really easy for me to monitor progress that way, for me to say, hey, I'm going to jump into my period 1 class. I want to see how many kids studied this study set that I told them to do. So the classes have their benefits, the folders have their benefits. I may do a mix of both. It depends, just because I do get a lot of traction on my Quizlet profile from students that aren't mine. And so they make their way over. So it might be easier for a student to find, you know, that Quizlet study set that's on exponents if they just saw it in the algebra exponents chapter. So I'm starting to think about that.
Marie had a question. She said, my students who have signed up for Quizlet have told me they can't access the Learn feature unless they sign up for the paid version. Is Learn available for students who have the free Quizlet account? And yes, it is. And I'll say there is like a little bit of a nuance here, which is there is a paid sort of feature set within Learn that students can upgrade to use. And that is like us automatically pulling in content from outside the study set to sort of expand their learning and generating fill in the blank question types for them that are different than what your study set has. But they can always just say like, no, I don't want to pay, and can keep going through. And then they'll get the great Learn experience, which is, you know, different question types remixed in different ways and sort of helping them see how far they have to go to hit their goal and know 100%. So your students can absolutely access Learn without paying. If they see something that prompts them to pay, they can just say like, no, thank you, and move on, and it should not be a problem. Okay. Let's see. Hannah says, do you have to have the paid version in order to track student progress, even if you make a class? And yes, so class progress is part of the paid Quizlet teacher subscription. Jordan and Liz are going to be talking about that more in a little bit, but essentially it allows you to easily see at a glance like what activities your students have completed in a given week or time frame, as well as see like what terms in a given study set they are struggling with, and go from there.
Amy asked, is it possible to have a study set in both a class and a folder at the same time? Definitely.
Okay. Okay, fast answer. Any chance we will be able to reset high scores? Doesn't exist right now, might exist in the future. I think if you were going to be hacky about it, the easiest way to reset high scores would be to copy the set and just create a new version of it, and then it would have all fresh scores. So that's my hack answer. And I don't have a time frame on when we would offer resetting live scores.
So Tony, I'm seeing about the, you can't find you said you're set as a teacher, but no live option. It may be because the study set that you started to build just doesn't have enough cards in it yet. And then once you keep adding more cards and it hits a certain number, Laura, is it maybe like 10 or a dozen, then you'll see that the live option will be there.
All right. Okay, Andrew asked, do you plan to increase the level that folders can be nested? Currently 1 level deep. Not in the short term, although we've certainly heard that request. I will note that last year about this time, we added the ability to add folders into classes. So we know for like power users, you have a class, you have your students for an entire year. All of a sudden you might have like, if you're doing weekly vocab, you might have, 30 different sets for vocab in addition to other sets, and that can be a lot. So we now offer the ability to like add folders to classes. That's probably the way that I would suggest handling that sort of content organization for now. I know a lot of other teachers will just create a folder for every unit. So maybe you have a class set up for your individual classes, and then for, you know, the I don't know, for eating words in Spanish, you have a folder. And then for, you know, irregular verbs, you might have a folder. So different teachers have different approaches. I think this is like an area where I, as someone who works at Quizlet, probably don't have the best advice, but I imagine other teachers you work with might have great hacks and hints for how to do this. Okay. Let's see. Tony says, I don't have the little teacher symbol next to the Quizlet name on the top left. That teacher symbol will show up if you upgrade to Quizlet teacher. So if you don't see that, it means you have a free account. Still great. And you don't need it to use Quizlet and do many, many powerful things. I'm going to answer this because I don't want folks to think that I'm ignoring it. We talked about this in the last session a little bit, but I'm going to talk about it here too in case people weren't in the last session. Terry and some other folks want to know about what happened to print. And full transparency, like print was like a pretty old feature, and we had some security issues with it. We had some scaling issues with it. It was like very hard for us to technically support. I know people don't like to hear that. They're like, how is that possible? That's what it was. And I, as the product manager for teacher world at Quizlet, wanted to spend my team's time building digital tools and digital services. So I think that's what Quizlet does better than anybody else, is like amazing digital learning tools. So we know that taking away print has been frustrating for teachers who relied on that. And I don't want to gloss over that anyway. And like, I hear you and I hear the frustration. We have sort of a lightweight print option now that you can use to print out your study set if you want it. The other thing, and I demoed this in our last session, but I'll do it again, that you can do is you can export and then you can customize as needed. So let me go back to my study sets. We'll go to American Pageant, chapter 17. And there's a lot of really cool stuff hidden right here under these three little menu options. If you hit export, you can export your content and then you could drop it into, you know, Word or Google Sheets or a different format. You can make it a CSV. CSV is probably the easiest way if you want to use, bring it into like a spreadsheet program. So that's probably the way I would suggest if you want to customize it. I mean, from there, I know you can customize Word to print out in different sizes, et cetera. And my hunch is, or my hope is that once you figure out the way you want it to be printed, that this could be a pretty fast process and it would take a couple of minutes to get it formatted. So still slower than automatically printing it from Quizlet, but still giving you the same functionality. So not trying to hide the printing questions, not trying to ignore them, but that is the answer. And I know that I know that is not the answer that some people are looking for. Okay.
How many students are allowed on one teacher account, Laura?
I was gonna say, like, you know, I don't know if anyone here's a Mean Girl fan, but like the limit does not exist. Mean Girls fan. You can have as many students as you want studying your content. I believe the limit for classes on the free account is you can have up to 8 classes. If you're a paid Quizlet teacher, you can have unlimited classes, but like no student limits as far as I know. I know sometimes I'll answer a question that's not asked here, which is sometimes people ask how many students can play live at once. And that is one that I also don't have an exact answer for. I've seen live played with like over 100 people. And the biggest issue is that like showing all the different teams on the leaderboard can be a challenge. But so far, I think you can play with a ton of people. So, all right. Let's see if there's some other good questions here. Maybe this is a good question for you, Rory. Beatrice asked, this is like a little bit more on the teaching side. How do you need to use Quizlet to help your students effectively per day? Do you need to break down the study set into many sessions? Like, do you want to just talk about how you use Quizlet with your students on like a high level? And maybe, you know, some other teachers, if they have things they want to add, could pop it in the chat to answer. Because this is one where like, I think Quizlet can be used in so many different ways, and what works for you might not work for Beatrice, but someone else's solution might. So.
Yeah, definitely. So I find that I most often use Quizlet when, I've already given my instruction for the day. It may be day 1 of instruction, it may be day 2 of instruction. I purposely plan out my Quizlet study set that I want the students to be working on, really specific questions. The whole point being that I'm not trying to trick them. I'm not trying to get crazy. They could be math problems. Sometimes math problems can take a really long time to solve. Sometimes they're really quick. I love adding in pictures of graphs and things like that. So normally, after my instruction is done and I'm looking for practice, I might say to my students, okay, here's the Quizlet study set that we're going to work on. I'm going to have you go and do like 5 minutes of quiet practice right now on your own, or you can work with a partner and just kind of go through the study set and get kind of warmed up. And then I'll say after 5 minutes, I'm going to ask everyone to join me for a round of Quizlet Live, depending on how complicated the problems are themselves. Being that I'm doing math Quizlets, we might go through a Quizlet Live session. I may then, have time to run multiple rounds. I saw someone ask a question about, not getting through all 20 cards because Quizlet Live is selecting 12 cards. If you have time, I would keep running rounds because Quizlet Live is going to snag a new set of dozen, randomly picked problems to go over and review. And I find that sometimes giving kids the opportunity to preview the Quizlet study set before they get it makes the Quizlet Live experience even better because the kids are not feeling like overwhelmed or like they're completely thrown for a loop. So that might be something nice to do. I also do that, especially in my classes where I have students that, Quizlet Live may be a little bit too stressful for them. They can't take the timing and it's just too much, the stress. So I might say, if everyone is starting quietly in the study set, just kind of practicing before we go to Quizlet Live, I might just, mention to those students like, hey, if you want to join me for Quizlet Live, that's great. Otherwise, you can just keep practicing and studying in the study set so that they're not feeling any additional stress. So I love that a lot. I love the fact that then my kids can study what we studied in class. They can continue to go and study at home. There are plenty of other websites like people had mentioned in the chat, but you have to, as a teacher, give permission for the kids to study them at home. Quizlet, everything's open and free. So, a kid can then just go home and continue studying. And I think that's what one of the best features is for sure.
All right, I think we probably have time for one more question. And let's see. I will also, well, before that, I'll say there's a lot of very specific questions in here about accounts, about people wanting to know my account type says this, my renewal date is this, how can you help me? Please, please, please send those questions into our help center. Like, again, we have an amazing team here that is ready to answer those questions. And those are the kinds of questions that I don't know enough about your account to answer them here, but we can help you. So like questions like, how can we tell when we're up for renewal? Or how can I combine 2 sets or 2 accounts into 1 account? Or those kind of questions, like we are here to help. So, okay. I'm gonna do one more question that I think is broadly accessible to many, many folks. Okay. Let's see. There's a lot of good ones and a lot of them are very complicated.
I know there's a lot of questions, a ton of questions, but I think we got through a really nice amount in this session. Up next, the next session is Susie Gomez, and she is also going to be able to answer a ton of questions. She's going to be talking about some other strategies and things you can bring into your classroom, but she is also such a Quizlet expert superstar teacher. So I think we'll be able to do that. Plus later today, you guys, there's going to be more people from Quizlet, Jordan and Liz, the benefits of Quizlet teacher at the 1 o'clock time Pacific. So if you didn't register for that time, that would be another great time to join in and definitely get some of your questions answered. It is so tough to answer everything in the time that we have for sure, but I think we got a lot covered, and do not hesitate to obviously reach out to Quizlet support for any of your specific questions. And I think we are going to be good to go on this.
We
Thank
did it.
you.
Thank you, everybody. And I'm so grateful for all of you and all of your hard work and all you do for students. I mentioned in my last session that I think, teachers are superheroes, especially over the last, 15, 18 months. So thank you. And have a great rest of Unconference. Thank you, Rory.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye.